Hello, my name is Dave Husband. I'm the owner of the Wilmington and Northern Branch, an HO scale layout that's based on a 1900-1905 era branch line of the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, the Wilmington and Northern Branch, that ran from Reading, Pennsylvania to Wilmington, Delaware. I've been building the layout since 2014. I have gotten the first half done, and now I'm working on the northern half of the layout. And I have completed the Birdsboro Yard, so now I'm trying to test it. I want to make sure that I can make all the blocks and that the operation that I have planned for it, I can actually execute. So while I was going to be doing that and testing it, I thought I would share with you some of the concepts and that of operating in a classification yard and switching to classify cars. First, let's talk a little bit about the design of the yard. The yard starts coming from the south, from Wilmington. You have the main lines. The main lines are all in the lighter ballast. The yard has a Y. This route here goes across the Schuylkill River and connects up with the main line of the Philadelphia and Reading and goes to Reading, Pennsylvania. So all the passenger trains come around this way. This leg of the Y and this main line leaving here, that was the old Wilmington and Northern route into Reading. However, after the Reading Railroad bought the Wilmington and Northern and made it a branch instead of an independent railroad, all of the Wilmington and Northern trains terminated here. So all of my freight trains are going to terminate at this yard. I have the Meadow Yard, which is used for local business, and then along the old main line, which was now became what the Reading called the Belt Line, I have the Belt Line Yard. The Reading freight trains operating between Philadelphia and Reading, Pennsylvania would set out and pick up blocks for the Wilmington and Northern Branch in the Belt Yard. So this, on my layout, these tracks are essentially visible staging and represent, at the beginning of the session, they're all the cars coming that have been set out by the Reading for the branch, and at the end of the session, they're all the cars leaving the branch going, that will be picked up by Reading trains and taken to either Reading or Philadelphia. This brings us to the question of what is classification in a classification yard? Classification is the sorting of cars to go towards their next destination or their next train. The railroad uses a term called a block, which identifies a group of cars that will be handled together. And that would mean that they would either be taken from wherever they are, whatever yard they're at, they would be taken to another yard to be switched, to industry, or to an interchange. So that's a block of what a block is. It is a group of cars that will be handled together on a train or trains. For my layout, I have basically 4 blocks as far as Birdsboro is concerned. There is the local block, which is all the cars for Birdsboro itself or for the locals that Birdsboro originates. There's a block for Coatesville, which is the major steel rolling center in southeastern Pennsylvania. And then there is the B&O interchange at Ellesmere Junction, and finally Wilmington, Delaware, where there's a lot of industry served out of the yard at Wilmington, and there are several locals that operate out of there. So I basically have those 4 blocks: local, Coatesville, B&O, and Wilmington. Now on my regular car cards, or waybills, I have a little color stripe and I have a printed on there the block names. But those are very hard to read for this video. So for the purposes of this video, I created these tags that are color-coded, the same as my waybills, and have a nice big letter on them to identify them. Local, Coatesville, B&O, and Wilmington. And hopefully you'll be able to see these colors and be able to understand what I'm doing as I'm switching. We've determined how many blocks we have. We have the 4 blocks. So now we have to figure out where in the yard are we going to put them. At Birdsboro, since all the through freights, the Wilmington and Northern trains, terminate at Birdsboro Yard and don't use the main line past Birdsboro Yard to operate, I use that as essentially a arrival departure track, so I can use that track. I'm going to pull the cut out of track number 1, so I'll have track number 1. So now I have 2 tracks. And I have a clear track in the belt yard, so that gives me 3 tracks. So I have 3 tracks to switch into. I have 4 blocks. Someplace I have to combine 2 of the blocks. So I have to think about what trains do I operate and what do I do with the blocks once I've classified them. In this case, the Coatesvilles ride on a Coatesville turn that carries just Coatesvilles. So I probably don't want to mix stuff with just the Coatesvilles. The local stuff is all going to go over here into the local yard. So right off the bat, I probably don't want to mix those up. Both the through freight and the Elverson turn, 2 of the other trains I run out of Birdsboro, they have both Wilmington and B&O cars on them. Since they both carry that block, it only makes sense that I should combine those 2 blocks together in the same track when I switch them, because that will put all the cars for 2 different trains in the same track. So it'll be easy to manage. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I have to decide what track do I want to put them on. Well, I think I'm going to put the locals on the main line, because if I need to clear the main line, I can easily take those cars and stuff them into the meadow yard. And that leaves me the 2 yard tracks. I'll put the Coatesvilles in one, and I'll put the Wilmingtons and Birdsboros over here in number 4. So let's, we've got now know what blocks we're going to make, we know how we're going to spread them, and we know what tracks we're going to put them in. We're ready to start switching. Here are the car cards and waybills for the track that we're switching. And the stack of waybills, I try and keep my switch cuts in what I call standing order. Standing order means that the cars are in the same order in the stack as they are in the track. And the way I organize it is I put the top card is the car furthest from the engine, so that when I switch, you always switch with the car furthest from the engine, so that's the top car in the deck. In order to make this easier, so I don't have to handle the cards as much, I've put a binder comb along the front edge of the layout. That way I can stack my cards in the binder comb. Oops. Now I can see all the cars and see what blocks I have to put them in. And once again, the cars are in the same order as they are in the train. So as I pull the cut out, I'm going to do a roll by, which means I'm going to compare the order of the cars to the list, the car cards that I have, and make sure I have all of the cars I'm supposed to have and that they're in the right order. So real crews, switch crews do this when they pull out a cut. That's what they check, is they get a roll by as they pull it by them to make sure that they have everything they're supposed to. So let's check it out. So I've got a Santa Fe reefer, a Lehigh box car, D&H car, W&N Gone, Big 4, a BRP hopper, Main Central box, Swift reefer, Pensy car, hopper car, Gone, another hopper, a Gone, nickel plate, and finally my C&W. So I have all of the cars that I'm supposed to have. Now my first car is that I have to switch is this B&O. That will go into track 4. Now I'm not going to shove it all the way down into track 4. I'm just going to shove it in the clear of whatever my last track is that I'm going to switch. I could shove it the additional 8-10 inches into the track, but that would take longer. It's quicker to go ahead and just shove it as far as you need to, and then cut it off there. So that car went into 4. My next car is a local car, and we said local cars are going to go on to the main. Next car is a Coatesville. We said Coatesvilles were going to go to 1. Since I'm not putting cars to tracks 2 or 3, I can go ahead and follow those while I'm in the process of switching. Now here, I'm lucky, I've got 2 cars going to Wilmington, so I have 2 cars that I can set over towards number 4. Now you may notice that as I'm putting these cards in the pocket over here, I'm turning them upside down and stacking them upside down one on top of each other in the pocket. The reason I do that is, and this will vary depending on the arrangement of your layout, but that way, when they're in the pocket, when I pull them out again, if you'll notice, the C&W car, which is here, is on the top, now is on the top of the stack. So if I have to go back to switch that, the cars are already in standing order and I don't have to fiddle around and sort with them or anything like that or put them in order. They're already in order automatically. So my next car goes to track 3. So we're going to just switch these up here. 2 local cars to the main. Now if you'll notice, I'm actually switching these things by car count rather than by initial and number. And that's because once you get them in standing order like this, you can just switch them by car count. That's actually how prototype switchmen switch, is they switch by car count and what track they're going to. Okay, I have finished that track. So, on the main line, I have 5 local cars, all locals. In track number 1, I have my 4 Coatesville cars. And then in track number 4, I have my Wilmingtons and B&Os. So I think that in order to make it easier for me later when I go to build a train, I'm going to go ahead and block out the Wilmingtons and the B&Os right now. So I'm going to go and get track number 4 and I'm going to block it out. Since I'm going to do this, it's just going to be a temporary move, I'm going to go ahead and put, to make the switching easier, I'm going to put the B&Os on track number 3, and I'm going to put the Wilmingtons back in track number 4. The reason I'm doing that is that at some point I want to double the B&Os on top of the Wilmingtons, because in the trains, the Wilmingtons go on the rear of the train and the B&Os are in the front of the train. So I want to make, since the rear of the train outbound is going to be that way, I want to make sure that I put the Wilmingtons on that end of the cut. Got one B&O. And then I've got 3 Wilmingtons. One B&O. Then we'll go back and we'll get the 2 B&O cars. So, at the end of all this, I now have all my Wilmingtons and B&Os blocked in 4. I have Coatesvilles blocked in 1. I have a cut of local cars for the Meadow Yard on the main track. When I switch my next cut of cars, which would, in this case, I would be switching track number 2. I can put all of my Coatesville cars on track number 1. Since I've cleared track number 2, I'll put the Wilmingtons in track number 2 by themselves. And then the B&Os, since I have B&Os top out in track number 4, I can just put additional B&Os on top of those B&Os and do that. And then all the local cars I can put onto my cut I have on the main track. So I can just continue, now that I've got the blocking established, I continue to build on that. I hope this has helped some of you understand how some of my reasoning and what goes into thinking about how you're going to classify cars and how you classify cars. When you classify cars, you switch a track. You don't cherry pick cars out of them. One of the reasons that I like the car cards is specifically because in a classification yard, it's real easy to rearrange the cards and come up with a second list as you were by putting them in the cone. If you're using a computer generated list, you probably end up with just one list and you have to pick the cars out of whatever track and they're not in standing order. This way, with the car cards, everything's in standing order, just like a prototype list would have. If you're carrying hazardous materials in a train, by federal law, you have to have a list that tells you where in the train each of those cars are. So having a list that shows the order of the cars is a big deal on a real railroad. And by doing this, I can accomplish that. Hope this helps some of you. Thank you for watching.